part of at the time. I didn't understand how huge this was or what was happening. I was I was at a certain part of the race where like the bikers and the runners would go by and I would hand them sponges and water, but I didn't understand the magnitude of what I was a part of. And so I handed waters to Mark Allen, who's like a legend in our sport. It's like handing a basketball to a Michael Jordan, you know, in the past or something like that. I mean, it's a big deal. And so again, no idea what I'm a part of. Well, as the time goes on, the top athletes are just flying through this race. I mean, it's incredible to watch. They're like machines. And then as the day goes on and there's a cutoff point at night where if you don't cross the finish line by that time, your race is over, which is just devastating if you've trained for a year for something like this and you can't finish, you know, because you didn't make the cutoff. So it was getting kind of close to that. And this one woman walked by. Now in Kona, especially back in the 90s, these areas were pitch dark. There's no lights, the lava fields. And this woman was barely jogging by us. And we offered her water. She didn't want it, but she just looked like she was about to pass out. I mean, she was barely running. Her hands were kind of like twisted in a weird way. Like she just didn't look like she was doing very well, but she was trying to run, which was like very impressive to me at the time. And so I just kind of went up by her and I was like, come on, you're almost there. The finish line's close. Let's go. Come on, you can do this. And I started encouraging her to run towards the finish line. And so we ran a little further, a couple miles, and then all of a sudden I see the finish line of this race. And that was a point where I was like, holy cow, what is this? I'm a part of something huge here. And it's the finish line at Kona, which is just a massive chute of people. It's like a human hallway, you know, just people run through the big red carpet leading up to the finish line. There's tons of media and lights and people are screaming. It is loud. It is intense. The energy is ridiculous at this race. And so I see her run towards her and I have to stop because now she's about to enter the chute. And I watch her run through the chute and there they announced her name, which I can't remember, but it was like, Sarah, you are an Ironman. And she crossed. And then the next person, Michael, you are an Ironman. And the next person crossed. And you see these people crossing and everyone cheering. And I just stood there like, what the heck? What is going on here? And my whole body had chills. And I was I was trying to figure out.
That gets me emotional just hearing it. I can only imagine what that feeling was.
Yeah. I mean, all these years later, like I'm 46, this happened when I was 19, I still get choked up. And I've crossed half Ironman finish lines because I've done 51 races at this point. I've done all
Wait, stop for a second. You were explaining this Ironman and you kept saying our sport, but I want everybody to just stop and hear for a second. You went from being diagnosed with MS and being told you have a terminal disease where you were going to be in a wheelchair eventually to doing how many marathons? I mean, triathlons?
Triathlon. Yeah. So 51 triathlons. It's funny. I was actually in Shape magazine a few years back, and I loved how they started the article. It says, so you get diagnosed with MS at the age of 35. What's the first thing you do? And it says that a triathlon? Like, what the heck?
Amazing.
And I love that because yes, that is what I signed up for my first triathlon blind in my right eye. And not having ever worked out really. I mean, I had a very false view of health. I thought I was skinny. I'm healthy. I don't need to work out. I don't need to eat well. I don't, all those things that were so false. And so I didn't have a pair of gym shoes. All my shoes had high heels. I had to buy a pair of gym shoes. I couldn't even run. The first time I tried to run a mile, I was like, I started running and then I had to stop and I couldn't breathe. I tasted this metal taste in my mouth. I felt I was going to pass out. And I looked at my time and I had only been running a few minutes. And so that's how bad it was. I mean, just very, had just zero endurance. The swimming, I had no idea. Like I knew how to swim to not drown, but not for a race.
Right.
And when I was doing this, which is funny because we live in one of the largest triathlon communities in the world, San Diego, because of the weather and just everything here. It's perfect for training. It's perfect for athletes. We have some of the top athletes that live here. But I didn't know any triathletes at the time. I think maybe there was one person that was just starting to do them, but I didn't know anyone. So I was just kind of showing up and doing my own thing and trying to figure this whole thing out. At the time, I mentioned we were in a really bad place. We had just gotten here, the market crashed. I had no idea we'd be where we are today with our business. But back then, I couldn't even afford a bike. And so I was training at spin classes and at the gym, and I was able to get a bike maybe a month before, very close to my race, a month before the actual race. And so I really wanted this. I wanted to do this one triathlon, which was like the second to shortest distance, which now would be like a warm up for me distance. But it took me 9 months to train for this. And once
you went from 0 to 60 though, like you had nothing. And the fact that you even decided to do a triathlon, I think for most people listening is like so mind blowing.
Yeah, it's mind blowing to me even just looking back at where I was in my life. I'm blind, have a MS, and I have these 4 little kids, and here I am with this drive to do this. And I just, at some point during, because I always say it's not about the race, it's about the journey. And it's so true, because during this journey, me training to cross this finish line of something I never thought my body would be able to do, tied in with beating MS. So when I crossed that finish line, it broke a lot of limiting beliefs for me. I'm like, I just did a triathlon. I just swam and I ran and I biked, and I've never done that. And what else can I do? Like, I can keep fighting this thing. I can do this. It just blew my world open, you know? And so it was pretty amazing. I raced my 51st triathlon in Malibu. I've been their featured athlete at the Nautica Malibu Triathlon now for 6 years, which has been a huge honor. And
how long is that triathlon?
Racing.
What is that distance?
So, well, they have, they offer 2 different distances, an Olympic and international, and I've done both. I think that last one I did was an Olympic. It's a shorter distance. But what's hard about that race is that it's at Zuma Beach, and ocean racing is very different than racing at the bay or in flat water. I mean, that beach is known for huge waves, and it's a huge challenge to race that, you know, because once you've gone through your swim, you still have to run and bike. So it's a very challenging sport, and I love it. And a lot of people who do triathlons, it does really do something. It breaks your limiting beliefs over and over again of what your body can do. And it's just amazing to watch your body build endurance to be able to do these kind of races, especially with MS. Having an MS diagnosis, usually when your body temperature rises, it promotes symptoms. So a lot of people with MS can't do a spin class. Yeah, exactly. They can't do a spin class. They can't do this level of racing or anything like that. And so it makes it even more incredible that I'm able to do that with this diagnosis. But I attribute it to the fact that I'm doing the work, and I'm healing my body by solving the root cause and of where this disease comes from, and being very intentional about how I do that. So
let me ask you a question. Do you feel like MS is in your past? It's in the rearview mirror now and it's never coming back. I mean, have you gotten to the point where you're just like, I battled that disease and it's gone? Or is there anything in your body or in your heart that says, you know, I could come back, like, but I have to keep grinding?
So, you know, in the medical community, they'll never say MS can be healed. Right? They say it's progressive, it's incurable. You always have it. Now, I've had it for 11 years. I've had 10 lesions gone off my brain after the year of just, you know, changing my diet, my lifestyle. My lesions, the 10 lesions that were showing up on 4 MRIs, the last MRI was completely clean, which is incredible.
Incredible.
I don't have any symptoms at all. Like, I don't wake up and think, oh my gosh, this is happening. At the same time, I'm not cocky. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh yeah, because really any of us can get anything. Mm-hmm. So we have to, you know, I mean, any of us can end up with anxiety and depression or some autoimmune disease. We don't know, which is why you do the preventative work before you get there. And so while I believe that my body is healed from MS, I don't have it I have no symptoms. I have no lesions. I have nothing that before the 3 top neurologists tested me for MS, I passed with flying colors every test. I have none of those anymore. But I'm not dumb. And so I'm not cocky, I should say. So I'm very careful, and I know my body so well. That's one thing I've really learned, is to be very in tune with my body. So I can handle a lot on my plate. Wear a lot of many different hats of my career, with my family, with everything. But when emotional stress comes, it's very difficult for me. And I know that. So I'm very aware. And so I have to be very careful, just like any of us.
Sure.
Any of us have. We all do, right?
Yes,
so
absolutely. So you still practice the lifestyle changes that you initiated from the very beginning with eating, watching what you eat, managing your stress and everything. All of those things are still part of your practice and will, sounds like, forever be. It's like you can't let off the gas.
100%, except my mentality, my mindset behind it has changed from one of doing this out of fear to doing this because this is good for my body. And it's,
sure.
And it's healing for my body, because after a year of doing this kind of working on the root cause and race, had started racing, and my body was training for this first race. I had my last MRI, which I was mentioning to you, came up with no lesions on my brain, which my doctor said. My neurologist was just in shock. At that point, I was seeing an Ayurvedic neurologist because I knew that she wouldn't think I was crazy. She was very supportive of what I was doing, unlike the other three. And so she said, I've seen a lesion shrink and a lesion disappear, but all of your lesions are gone.
Wow.
And looking at my MRI report, that said, because a lesion on the brain is demyelination. So the myelin sheath that covers your nerves in your brain is destroyed. And that's where the lesion forms, and that's where the symptoms come from, depending on where in your brain it is. So I was used to seeing these MRIs, the reports say demyelination at this, I can't remember now what they were, but at this point on the brain, and demyelination here and here. And then I pull up the picture of the MRI and I would see the spots. But this one came back with no demyelination present and a clean picture of my brain, which I hadn't seen in a year, with a clean brain like that. It was absolutely shocking and amazing.
But you felt that difference in your body. You kind of like walked in knowing like something's shifting, right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Like I said, I felt completely different physically, mentally, and emotionally. And after that first year, when I got that MRI back, I thought, oh, look, I'm good. Like you were asking me, do you still live this way? Do you feel? I thought that at the time, look, the lesions are gone. I'm feeling great. I'm racing. This is amazing. I don't have this anymore. And I started slacking on a few things that year. I never went back to how I was living before, because I loved how I was feeling. It was amazing. But I slacked on a couple of things. And that year, I did experience 3 symptoms. And my MRI, that next MRI, showed that a lesion was back.
Wow.
And one of those symptoms was incredibly scary, and it's called trigeminal neuralgia. And it's the trigeminal nerve in your face, which is awful. If you Google it, they say it's the most excruciating pain known to man. It's known as the suicide disease. People without MS have it. A lot of people just have this disease where they're having this pain in their face, and it feels like the worst headache or migraine you've ever had, someone stabbing you in the eye, the worst earache, the worst toothache, all just firing off your face. And when I had that, and it went, thank God it went away. It was only a couple of hours, but I'll never forget it. I just say the name and my body reacts. Like I get chills every time. It's terrible. And a lot of people live with this their whole lives. So that's when I realized, you know what? I have this disease in my body. I know what to do to prevent it from showing up. So I'm going to do it. And I'm never going to feel like this again. I do not want to live with maybe I could have this again, this kind of symptoms. And that's just, one of thousands of MS symptoms that you could have.
Yeah.
So that was it for me.
You went through this journey, and you're still going through the journey, but you have climbed these mountains that, people who are, quote, healthy would never even dream of. Is there a next? Is there something that you have your eye on that you want to conquer in the next year, or what's next for Aurora? I mean, I think the bottom line is we can overcome so much, but is there another thing that you have your eye on?
Yeah, there's a few things. So personally, as I mentioned, always, and I held back tears talking about Ironman. It's such a huge part of my life. I've raced a half Ironman before and crossed an Ironman finish line, the half, but I've always kind of joked, some people save themselves for marriage. I'm saving myself for Ironman. Like I can do an Ironman. I could sign up for an Ironman right now anywhere in the world, but not Kona. Kona, you have to qualify.
You have to qualify.
Or have an inspirational story spot. And so for me, if that ever happened, it would be an amazing dream come true. So that's always